Yeah, I was confused about how to title this video. I chose How to Become a Millionaire, but another title that I wanted to use is You Gotta Quit Fiddle Farting Around. One reason A.O. Williams was so successful, and I learned this in coaching, is you have to simplify the complicated. You know, my first playbook as a head coach, I've told you this before, it was an inch thick, and had all these different formations and plays and all this kind of stuff. My last year when we won the championship, my playbook was like 7 pages thick. Prudential's playbook was, an inch thick, 170 something pages. Our playbook was 1 page. Most things written about financial services back in the 60s when I went in the business, there were books that were so complicated. I'm not a big reader, a good reader. And, they have, look at all this crap. Now, this is The Millionaire Next Door. Now, look at this. Who in the crap can read this and understand it? Well, I got this, How to Be a Millionaire. I got it down to about 10 pages. 10 principles, how to be a millionaire. I learned all this crap on how to be a millionaire or to quit fiddle farting around while I was part-time. Even before I got a license, it took me 3 months. Back in 1967, you had to get a securities license and an insurance license. And so it took me 3 months to do that. And during those 3 months, I learned all these principles. They're not complicated. The life insurance industry, the investment industry, the banking industry complicates a simple business so they can screw you. That's the American way. And A.O. Williams won, but by simplifying these principles down to what we call common sense, where people like me that ain't got much sense, but I got a little common sense, and you can understand these principles. It's not complicated on how to become a millionaire or a multimillionaire. If you understand these simple little principles that I learned in 1967 before I got a license in 3 months, and I started implementing them. And one of the keys I talk about is, folks, you got to get going now. Time and consistency is the key to becoming a millionaire. And as I say over and over again, I'm the perfect example of somebody that was not supposed to become a millionaire. Here, I was a football coach with a PE degree. Most money I ever made coaching was $10,700 a year. But what I learned in those 3 months getting my insurance and securities license and studying this business and thinking about my dad dying and what a disastrous situation, because my dad was sold the wrong kind of insurance that my mother found herself in. The dad of one of my football players, comes in to sell me life insurance, had a wife and 2 children, and he said, "How much can you afford to pay?" I said, $20 a month, and he sold me a $15,000 whole life policy. The dad of one of my football players that I trusted. I didn't know nothing about insurance. I didn't know nothing about investments. I was a football coach. And then I found out later that he could have sold me $150,000 of term. The kind of stuff my mother needed, the kind of stuff Angela needed if something happened to me. So these simple common sense principles, folks, if you get off your butt and get going and master them, anybody can become a millionaire. Anybody can become a millionaire. So let me just go through them. The first thing is I learned about trash value life insurance. Consumer Report put out a publication that showed, they said for 51 years they'd been recommending term insurance. But nobody bought term insurance because nobody could read all that complicated crap, that was all that was written back then. And so they said for a whole life or universal life policy, $200,000, it costs $2,000 or $3,000. And their term example for a $200,000 term policy, huge amounts of insurance when you need it, when you've got a mortgage and your kids are young. The older they're getting, the more your mortgage is being paid off. We have the decreasing responsibility theory. See, 85% of the people out there retire flat broke. They're counting on Social Security, which probably ain't gonna be here 20 or 30 or 40 years from now. It's bankrupt. And so I learned the difference in term and whole life. Consumer Reports said this is unbelievable. Trash Value Life Insurance is the worst investment program in history. In year 1, you get a whopping 0% return. In year 5, a minus 60% return. In year 20, the Federal Trade Commission said you get an average in a whole life policy of 1.2% return. But all that don't matter, as sorry as that is, and it's the sorriest investment in the world. The worst thing about Trash Value Life Insurance as an investment program is you lose it if you die. So I found out that principle those 3 months while I was getting the license. The next principle I learned was buy term and invest the difference. See, most people are going to live. But in case you do die, if you've got responsibilities, you know, a mortgage and a home and kids, this was called the decreasing responsibility theory. While you've got these huge responsibilities, you've got to buy huge amounts of inexpensive term life insurance. And at some point in time, that life insurance is level for a while, and then it begins to decrease. But then what you do is you start an investment program. And the key to becoming a millionaire is time and consistency. Is every month you're investing money in a great investment money program with professional money managements, you know, that have research departments and a vehicle like a mutual fund, you know, and over any 10-year period of time. Over any 10-year period of time since the mutual funds were invented, they've averaged over a 10% return. So that's the key. The key is getting started and time and consistency. And let me give you this example. Look at this chart. This will just blow your butt out of the water. The high cost of waiting. If you invest $100 a month at 12%, at age 25, and that's your retirement program, let's say to age 65, if you wait 1 year, if you do it at age 25, every month, $100 a month, at 12%, you'll have $979,000. But if you wait 1 year to start, and you're just out there fiddle farting around, having fun, screwing around, you lose $106,000. It's only worth $873,000. Now, if you wait 5 years to get started, at age 30, instead of being worth $979,307, you're worth $551,000. You lose $428,000 by waiting just 5 years. So another step that I learned is no expensive debt. I learned about credit cards. I went home after I learned this one principle during those 3 months. I tore up our credit card. Angela literally sat in the kitchen and cried. She said, how am I going to buy groceries? You know, how am I going to pay my bills? I said, we're not going to let the banks continue to screw me. Banks pay you on CDs 1% or 1.5% or 2%, some crap like that, you know. And then they give you a credit card, and if you go out and use the bank's money and you pay them back monthly on their little deal, you know, they make 17 to 27%. That's like robbery. Ain't that something? Ain't that dadgum something? And folks, you've got to stay away from these expensive things like we eventually, after we paid off our credit card loan, then we started screwing the banks. I found a way, simple coach, a football coach with a PhD degree, I found a way to screw the banks, you know, to use their money, pay it off every month, and they charge you zero. And then I'm putting it over here in a good mutual fund with an IRA, and I'm making 12%, 15%, 20%, 10%, you know, and paying the banks zero. And so we eventually got, right now when I'm traveling, I'm going to Europe today, Angela and I'm in my pocket, I put my credit card that I pay off every month and pay using the bank's money, because I don't want somebody to rob me and have a lot of cash, you know, or all that kind of crap. And so I just carry a credit card. I lose about one a year. And all you do is call the bank, you know, and they are responsible for it. Ain't that something? I just hope somebody steals it and go charge us thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars before the banks find out. You know, that's my wish. But anyway, I call them, and they issue me a new credit card, zero balance. You know, somebody's probably taken that and charged hundreds of thousands of dollars on it. You know, they eat that. Ain't that wonderful? They eat that. And So I carry a credit card for convenience, and I carry my driver's license, and then I carry a little cash, a billionaire. I don't carry gobs of money that somebody can steal from me and all that. Plus, I put it in my pants pocket. The camera can't get that right now. I hope you can get this though. Quit fiddle farting around out there. It just takes a little common sense, and you gotta eliminate, I call it expensive debt, like credit cards, like buying furniture. You ever see people that have these yard sales, when they get in a crisis, and they got their old furniture out there. If you go buy furniture and you walk out the store with a furniture, let's say a sofa, do you think anybody's going to, if you pay, let's say, $300 for a sofa, what's that thing worth when you walk out the door? People that got anything, even school teachers like me, they don't want to go somebody's old furniture that probably had cats sitting on it. You got cat hair and they peed on the sofa and all that kind of crap, So these people have yard sales because the furniture's not worth anything, right? They also probably have a rack of old clothes. You go buy clothes. Like I buy most of my clothes at Walmart, as you can tell. But you go buy clothes, the minute you walk out of the store, the value of that purchase is worth almost nothing. I mean, you can go put it on a rack, and if you paid $100, I ain't ever done that, but if you go paid $100 for a shirt, and you go at a rack of old shirts out there in a yard sale, what you gonna sell that for? $3? $5? You got to understand this kind of stuff. You go on vacations. Once that vacation's over, you had a little fun for 10 days, and I think you ought to do that when you can afford it, to pay cash, okay? But then that's gone. That money's gone. Vehicles. I don't buy new cars. The minute you drive that car off the lot, you lose about 20% of the value. 20% of the value. So if you pay $30,000 for a car, the minute you drive that thing off the lot, it's going to be worth probably $20,000 or $17,000 or something like that. You've got to understand that. I drove an Allstate red scooter for 3 years. I've never bought a new car. Now, Angela, on the other hand, she buys a new car, so we got to a point where I could afford to buy her a new car. Today, I never buy a new car. You can go buy a demonstrator that's got a few miles on it, and all of a sudden they give you a 20% discount or 30% discount. And how long can you drive a car? 100,000 miles, 75,000 miles, You should not buy a new car until you become a billionaire, And does that make sense to you people out there? Student loans. They ought to go to Washington and put a guillotine out in the middle of the courtyard and start with the Democrats first, and then line up the Republicans and just put their neck on the guillotine and just chop them off, one at a time, because they came out with something like student loans. I told you a while ago about the cost of waiting, fiddle farting around, right? They go to a college and get a college degree, which ain't worth nothing, because college professors, especially in business, ain't ever done nothing, so they don't know nothing, so they can't teach nothing. This stuff I'm talking about was never discussed in college. They never taught me anything of value about buying the right insurance and investing in an IRA with tax advantages. They don't talk about that. They talk about crap, because that's all they know is crap. And so student loans are a disaster, because you got kids graduating from college I think the average college debt is $35,000 or $40,000 or $50,000. Some people got $150,000 because they think a college degree is worth something. They get out of college, and 99% of the people don't use the degree they get. They get some stupid degree out there and they don't use it, and yet they leave with a $50,000 debt. And it takes them 5 years to pay it off, or 10 years to pay it off. They have to go back and live with mom and dad because they can't get a job. It's a disaster. Then they're waiting, and they're counting on Social Security, which is going bankrupt. So the only kind of debt you should have as a youngster, getting married, starting your family, is a mortgage. I mean, you can go buy a house that has a mortgage because it has some tax advantages to it, okay? But even that, another step is having no debt. You need to work, folks, towards having no debt. Now, this next step just wipes me out. I don't understand it today. It blows me away. I've been in the business since 1967, but I call this the magic of compound interest. You know, if you put $1,000 in Bank A and get 5%, look at this. In 70 years, that's worth $30,426. Now, if you put $1,000 in Bank B and get 10% interest, now that's double. You people out there, do you get this? Do you grasp this? 10% is twice 5%, right? So that's double. I can't think of another way to say it, right? But it ought to be worth twice as much. My common sense tells me that, right? But in 1967, I found out this is the way the banks make money. They got all these big towers downtown, you know, with Bank America, Citigroup, that kind of thing. If you put $1,000 in Bank B at 10% interest, everything in my brain tells me it ought to be $60,000 because 5% is $30,000. But this is the magic of compound interest. This is what banks and insurance companies found out. It's worth $789,000. That's magic. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? Now look at this next chart. Time and consistency. You got to get started quick. Get started now. No debt. Don't buy declining assets, you know, like clothes and cars and stuff, unless you can pay cash for it. Drive a 5-year-old car or drive a red Allstate scooter like I did, you know, until you can get enough cash to buy a used car. Look at this chart. $100 a month, compound. Now we're talking about becoming a millionaire or a multimillionaire, right? If you get 1% like they pay in banks in 70 years, that $100 a month grows to $121,000. Well, if you get 6%, it's worth $1.1 million. That's how you become a millionaire. That's how you become a millionaire. Or you can get 12%, which you can put in a mutual fund and get 8 or 10%. Then you got tax advantages that President Reagan came up with, one of the greatest things in the world. And that same $100 a month with an insurance company would be worth $121,000 that you lose if you die at 12% interest over 70 years. Is $29.6 million. That's magic. Now ain't that something? That's what A.O. Williams did for families out there. Then I learned about something. This is an old football coach with a P degree. I had $1,000 when I started in this business, $1,000 in our teachers credit union. The rule of 72. Now look at this. This was just a simple way for people like me to understand the magic of time and consistency. It doesn't take a lot of money to become a millionaire, okay? You just got to be smart and you can't waste money. Okay, so look at this, the rule of 72. If you get 1% interest like you do with a bank, it doubles in 72 years. But if you get 6% interest, it doubles in 12 years. Isn't this something? Ain't that something? If you get 12% interest over 72 years, it doubles in 6 years versus 72 years. Is that just any simple-minded person can understand that? Ain't that, you can't have a smaller brain than I've got, right? And all of a sudden I had the magic of compound interest. The key is professional money management. So we sell by term and invest the difference. The decreasing responsibility theory, a huge amounts of insurance when you have huge responsibilities, young kids, mortgages, this kind of stuff, you know. And as that begins to go down, your insurance begins to decrease, you know. And all of a sudden, you use the magic of compound interest and you go get professional money managements and research departments handling your money like in a good mutual fund or an index fund. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Simple. And then another thing I learned is ITT had a meeting where a guy was talking about a book that Napoleon Hill had written. And he said the common denominator of all these successful people. I see, for people like me, folks, I'm so sick and tired of these so-called experts writing a book that ain't ever done nothing, or these college professors trying to teach kids out there how to win that ain't ever done nothing. And let me tell you a principle. I listen to people that have done it. If you're going to talk to me, the first thing I want to see is your resume. And if you ain't built a business, if you hadn't become a millionaire, then don't talk to me about how to become a millionaire. Does that make any sense to you folks out there? I know I sound, I know you probably don't like me, but you know what that means to me? As zero. Because I tell it like I think it is. And I've proven that the way I think it is, these are not my ideas. I didn't invent all this stuff. I just found smart people that taught me these ideas, right? And if you say, well, Art, you are crude and you are rude. And that's what I mean to be, crude and rude, because I want you to quit fiddle farting around and let's get on with becoming a millionaire, right? And I'm giving you simple principles I learned that work 100% of the time. Does that make sense to you people out there? So hate me if you want to. I know I'm not polished. I know I'm not good looking. I know I'm not smart, okay? But I'm worth a lot more than you, okay? This guy said, I studied all successful people out there, all people that have been in all kind of different walks of life, and this was just, you can do these principles in any kind of, to be successful in any kind of business, but I just applied these to me to become financially independent. And for years in A.O. Williams, every recruit I recruited, every fast start school I talked to, folks, I gave these principles to every single A.O. Williams person. And the last principle, and we owe this to President Reagan, is when they came up with an IRA, that was the death blow to cash value life insurance. They'd been screwing the consumer, literally screwing the consumer, biggest screw job ever for over 100 years. And then the IRA came out, and this was the nail in the coffin, buried those SOBs, for a nicer word. Look at this. Look at this. If you put $2,000, that's what you could do back then when it started in 1984. Okay, now I think you can put $5,500 a person in there. Okay, but if you put $2,000 in there, you save $560,000 in taxes. And that's something. Now, in addition to getting an investment return with your professional money management and a good mutual fund, that kind of thing, then that makes maybe 10%. Okay. Then all of a sudden you save 28% or 25% or 32% or 40% like that tax bracket I'm in. The government is so desperate because Social Security is going bankrupt that they want to encourage people to invest money, so they created the greatest investment in the history of the world. So look, if you take the same $2,000, if you got $2,000 you earn, you can put it into an IRA with me and a great professionally managed mutual fund that's going to pay you 10%, 12%, 15%, 8%, whatever. Historically, it's always done 10% over any 10-year period of time. You can put that $2,000 with me, and you don't pay taxes on that. Or you can go down to a bank or to a non-IRA mutual fund, and you can take that same $2,000, okay? But before you put that $2,000 in your investment program, you got to pay $560 in taxes. So you only get to invest $1,440. Does that make sense? Earn the same $2,000, okay? The government defers your taxes on that and lets it accumulate deferred, right? And look at the difference. In 40 years, if you don't have an IRA, same $2,000, you have a pot of $480,000, but if you put the $2,000 with a great tax deduction, okay, you're worth $1.7 million. That's how you become a millionaire. Just little simple common sense principles. Does that make sense? You got to quit fiddle farting around and get on now, because the key is time and consistency.